TV.
That's a very good question, and I love it. I've been privileged to represent the residents of Ward 1 the last 4 years. We've accomplished a great deal, but yet there's still much more to do. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to continue being the voice for Ward 1 around the table. I believe I bring experience of over 30 years of community leadership. I am committed to making Waterloo better for all of our residents, and I look forward to having the support of the Ward 1 residents for the next 4 years.
So basically, I've been living in that ward about almost like 12 years now. And I believe I have something I can contribute to my ward and my city at large. Technically, based on my current business I'm doing and my connections and my friends and support of the family and other friends also. So I think everybody who has something to contribute to the community should come forward and try to present themselves and their idea and just run it as a part of democratic process. So whoever has more appealing like a platform or agenda that serves the community and the city at large, I think should deserve have this run.
So I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Royce Bodley. I'm the current Ward 2 City Councillor representing Clare Hills, Vista Hills, Columbia Forest, Laurelwood, and Laurel Creek. And I'm running for re-election. After graduating from Laurier in 2004 with an honors degree in economics and accounting, my wife and I chose to stay here to raise our family, and we've lived in the Columbia Forest area of Ward 2 for 15 years. And so why I'm running, I love working with community members to make the city a better place to live, tackling problems large and small. And I've worked really hard to engage with residents in person, at events, on social media, through town halls, and through my website where I provide monthly newsletters to my constituents. I'm excited to continue tackling the challenges that we face as a city, including climate change, affordable housing, and safe streets. I'm really passionate about building an equitable and inclusive city where all are welcomed and belong, and I'm eager to continue to bring my passion, commitment, and experience back to council.
You know, as residents of Waterloo, we're really fortunate to live in a city that has a certain quality of life. And I believe that with my professional and personal life experiences, I can help Waterloo move from good to great. I've been known to build experienced teams. I have a lot of experience with regard to multi-million-dollar budgets. And I have a real sense towards supporting the community. So that's why I'm running, David.
Thank you. So I'm running for council in Ward 3 because, first of all, I just wanted you to think about when you were in your 20s, or if you're still in your 20s and you kind of feel like the world is at your fingertips and you really want to do some good in the world. You want to change the world and you want to do something, and that's why I'm here. I want to do something. I have the skills, and so when I started voting when I was 18, I've heard every single election since then, where are the young people? We need to get young people engaged. And here I am. That's kind of why I'm here. And I want to show that you can do it if you're young. And I hopefully want to inspire some more young people to get out there and get engaged and put their name out.
I don't have to think too much about that one. So with the changeover in council and a new mayor and 3 new councillors coming, I thought there might be some value in having some continuity from previous councils moving forward. I know that several of my colleagues are seeking re-election. They had an odd term because it was a COVID term, and so they've kind of had one COVID term of council and experience with one 1-year budget and one 3-year budget. So I'm hopeful that by staying on for another term that I can bring some of that corporate memory and corporate skills and some background to some of the decisions that have been made in the past, and for council to think about have this situation changed from past decisions or not?
Well, I came in as a student in 2014. After that, I got my work permits and then got my permanent resident and became a citizen. So when I came in, Canada actually accepted me. So I've been working as a community support worker, where I see most seniors, most people with disabilities, they've been neglected a lot. People are homeless. So for me to contribute my own sector, I love serving. So I decided to run for the post of a councillor for Ward 4 to serve the general public, starting from the grassroots. I believe politics should start from the grassroots, where you've been around people, you know their needs, you know what they want. So yeah, and since I've been around them, I said, okay, this is an opportunity for me to contribute my own quota to the society.
I have lived in KW all my life, minus going to Mac for university, but I've been a Waterloo homeowner for 35 years, always been interested in politics, and I'd like to give back to the community. And I feel maybe the last little while that some of the council decisions, I'm not sure if fit what the voter wants. I just use one example, say backyard fires. There was a survey done in March of 2021 that said 80% of Waterloo residents wanted that. And they voted it down yet again. And there's other matters, I just use that one because that's a large percentage. And so I'd like to listen to the voters. I'd actually like to do bi-monthly town hall meetings if I get elected, so they could come and talk to me and say, what do you want in your ward?
It has been my honor and privilege to be your ward councillor for Ward 5 in Waterloo for the past 4 years. I prioritized in the last election making sure that I communicate regularly with people, and I've done that this term through my newsletter, phones, social media, and dropping a physical newsletter in everyone's mailboxes once. We have so many day-to-day issues and challenges that we've been working together to solve. And I want to help again with those individual issues, as well as the big social issues that we're tackling, like climate emergency, equity. And as of October 25th, with my experience and my excitement and my know-how of the community and the city, I'm ready to hit the ground running to really make a big impact and build upon the work that we've done this last 4 years for the next 4 years.
I'm running for council because I think that local government is really important. Right now in Waterloo, we're facing a lot of major issues that can really only be solved by having people in multiple levels of government working together, cooperating, getting things done. And I've experienced campaigning at the national level. I work or have worked at the provincial level in politics, and have also been a part of this community for a long time, making sure that the issues that we face are things that we're talking about, that we're finding solutions for, and getting addressed.
Hi, I'm Mary Lou Rowe, and I've lived in Ward 6 for 16 years, and I care deeply about my community. And after 3 years of pandemic upheaval, people need a person that they can trust and rely on to be their voice at City Hall. I will be that person. I will be the safe, reliable bridge that takes your needs to the city. That's because who I am and what I already do. For more than a decade, I have worked at the grassroots level to increase awareness around the issues facing newcomers and refugees, and I advocate for them as they settle in the region. I will bring that commitment to community and belonging to Ward 6 and to the city so we can continue building a community together.
All right. I'm running for Ward 6 councillor in the City of Waterloo because as I see half of council is not even running again, I think it's really important that we have a strong progressive voice around the city table to make sure that we give attention to the issues that really matter. I think there are some issues that Waterloo's been making great progress on that we need to continue our efforts on, and other issues of particular importance to Ward 6 that need some more attention. My priorities in particular surround affordable and high quality housing for the residents of Ward 6 in Waterloo, ensuring that we have a robust active transportation system that allows residents to get around the city no matter what mode that they choose, comfortably and safely, and ensuring that we continue to develop our sustainability commitments and meet the priorities and targets set in the Transform Waterloo Region Plan.
Yeah, well, thanks for the invite here today and for the questions. I'm a long-term resident of the City of Waterloo. I've lived 30 years of my life in this city in various wards, and for the past 10 years I've been in Uptown Ward 7. I saw an opportunity with the current councillor in our ward stepping down, and I wanted to give back a little bit of my time for the city that I've been in for the past 30 years and see if I could offer some of my services for this great city that I've loved for the past 30 years.
I'm running for Ward 7 in Waterloo, specifically because we're coming through a really challenging time. 2 years of pandemic, we're facing the complexity of climate change, and we're starting to see it in a very local way. And I have the capacity to step forward, and I want to build a thriving and prosperous Waterloo that my children can benefit from 20 years from now.
I would say that there are really two key issues for Ward 1. The first is ensuring that our streets are as safe as possible for pedestrians, for cyclists, and for drivers. We've done a lot in traffic calming measures throughout the ward, and I'd like to continue that strategy. The second issue is housing that is affordable. We need to have housing that's available to seniors, to those that are looking to be first-time homebuyers, as well as those who are maybe needing a little bit of help in being able to afford homes. I'd like to also see us consider something like a rent-to-own program that can be not only in Ward 1, but citywide.
Yeah, so one of the key issues is we have some, we located at the far west end of Waterloo, which mainly like exposed to more wind and snowfalls, and early internal streets suffer more for the snow blowing because of the, during the heavy storms. So last winter, I think we were stuck in our street for 2 days. We cannot get in, the other issue we have some good people there, but also we have some difficulty with some transportation issues like passing. Some roads need to be restored, and also we fix some other trails. We need to have some outfitting also areas.
So the four main issues from my perspective are related to affordable housing, climate change, safe streets, and belonging and placemaking. I think this touches on a lot of the issues that are facing the constituents of mine in Ward 2, and these are issues that I hear from when I'm out door knocking or talking to residents on a weekly basis. I know how important climate change is because I've seen, I attended the climate march uptown Waterloo, and I saw thousands of people who inspired me when it comes to folks advocating for action. The same thing is true around affordable housing and some of the many protests and local advocates that have discussed that issue. And every single day, every single week, I hear from constituents about challenges related to safe streets and related to ensuring that our streets are functional for pedestrians, cyclists, children, and seniors, and basically all of our vulnerable road users. So those are some of the main topics that I would like to address in my next term on council.
Great question. So we have many responsibilities at the municipal level, at the local level, but I think the top three issues facing council are focused on what I call city building. So that has to do with like affordable housing, which is the number one issue, David. And that also relates to land use and housing decisions. And of course, that also, even, climate change, addressing climate change is essential as it relates to, building the infrastructure. But the number one issue in my ward, as I'm hearing from people that I'm knocking on doors, is affordable housing.
Okay, yeah. So when I've been out there talking to people, I I was asking, what is your issue? And the people that I've talked to so far, they actually really want fire pits in Waterloo. And I know that has been discussed at council already, and they decided no, but I think it's really important to listen to the needs of the voters, and that's what the people in Ward 3 have expressed to me. What they really want, what they really need is actually fire pits. So I think that the first thing I would want to do is see if we can address that again, if we can look at it in a different way. And if it's really that important to people, it's just building a sense of community in the pandemic. After the pandemic, it's how do we connect to people again? And I think that's really what they're getting at and what the people really need. And that's why fire pits is a big issue. Is how do we get that community back together? So.
Well, I guess it's not so much that it's just ward issues. Although I'm a ward councillor, I'm a city councillor, and I have to look at the fiduciary responsibility to the corporation. We've done a lot in my ward over the last year. We got a new East Side library, and we've certainly made investments. We're seeing some growth and development happening in my ward. There's some multi-residential development that's happened at Northfield and Bridge, another happening at Northfield and King, and another seniors living center that will have affordable seniors living on University Avenue as part of the Mennonite home there. So I think going into the next term, a lot of the focus will be more broadly on city issues as opposed to singularly ward issues.
Affordable housing is one of my priority. Most people have been living homeless in the streets. There's no enough shelters in the ward. So these are one of the priorities I want to tackle. Another one is the issue of childcare. I believe it's not, it's something that's been neglected all these years. You find out that we don't have enough childcare centers around, and children are being, caged indoors, like we're just coming out from the pandemic. Now you see that children, they don't socialize, and they are being put on a wait list for even until they start junior kindergarten, which is not supposed to be like that. So childcare is the second issue I want to tackle. So transportation might also come in line too, but the first one is accommodation, childcare, and then transportation.
I think probably the most interesting one in my ward is probably speed limits. We live in an area that has schools, and I am for lowering the speed limits to, say, 30 kilometers in the school. But then on the other hand, I live University Bridge, that area. That's a busy area. To bring those down to 30 kilometers or even 40, I'm not sure is appropriate. So I think that needs to be discussed again at council and some logical decisions made about that. And perhaps there are streets where pedestrians is more of an issue and maybe they do need to be lowered. But on other streets, I think the status quo would probably be just fine.
Ward 5 is such a vibrant place. The neighbors over the pandemic have come together to do community events, support one another through the challenges of the pandemic. And as a community, we're just starting to imagine what the next phase of our lives can look like. How do we recover and thrive from the pandemic? So a priority for me is to make sure that I continue to work with neighbors to use the neighborhood strategy to get people out, get people connected, so that we can help one another recover from this pandemic economically, socially, and culturally.
Yeah, the number one thing that I hear about at the doors every day is housing. People are worried about housing for themselves. They're worried about whether they can keep the housing that they're in. They're worried about, where they'll move if their family grows and where their family members might end up living. We need to make sure that we have people in our community able to stay in our community, that we have the housing people want to live in, and that it's available at prices that people can afford. Where we are right now just isn't working for so many people, has so many people worried. That's the number one thing that I hear about, and the number one thing that I think we need to address.
The top 3 issues of my campaign are affordable housing, community building, and climate action. Climate change is the most significant crisis we are facing in our time, and we must continue to move forward with responsible climate action so we can adapt and build resilience in our city. But in order for residents to be engaged and to move forward with climate action, they first need affordable places to live. And right now in Waterloo Region, many residents are struggling to secure housing that is safe, affordable, and meets their needs, whether they are seniors, students, singles, or families. When residents feel like they belong, they can also feel more included in our community. When residents feel that they are visible, that they have access to work, services, green spaces, and opportunities, they are more willing and able to participate in the community. So when residents have a place to live, when they feel visible and heard, they participate in the community, and then together we can move forward on responsible climate action that ensures a future for us all.
The issue on everybody's mind right now is housing. Affordable housing and high quality housing are two paired issues that are really important, not only to Ward 6 and not only to Waterloo, but people across the country. And it's something that we need to focus on at a municipal level, as the municipal government is the one most empowered to make progress on this issue. In Waterloo, I'd like to focus on modernizing our zoning bylaws to enable us to develop missing middle style housing, more dense style housing, and a bunch of other flexible styles of housing to meet the diverse needs of everyone across the city. As well, we need to focus on having high quality housing for people that wish to get into home ownership, current homeowners, and renters across the city, as issues of low quality housing and housing that doesn't meet the needs of our residents has been around for a long time.
Well, I have a few priorities that I'd like to see improved in this city. I think there's been a lot of improvements in Uptown, on King Street particularly. I do spend a lot of time walking around in Ward 7. I've spent a lot of time in the park, Waterloo Park, which is a great park. What I'd like to see is more social activities. I know we have some great events. We just finished Busker Fest. We also have Jazz Fest, which is a great event in Waterloo, and Rib Fest and those types of things. And I'd like to see more of those social activities planned for the city, better turnout, and also, if we can, I'd like to see more open space in the downtown core or the uptown core, and those are my priorities.
There are a number of key issues that I think are really important and interrelated. So when I think about what Waterloo is going to face, specifically Ward 7, we've got climate change, we've got affordable housing, we need to invest in economic resilience and prosperity in our uptown core, we need to invest in youth engagement, and we need to try some new approaches to try to engage people in the democratic process. These are really, really important because the complexity of the challenges that we're facing, it's really significant, and we need everyone participating. We need their ideas. We need their creativity.
We've done a lot in the past 4 years trying to work with the developers and with the landlords around affordable housing, doing some advocacy with the region and also with the province to ensure that we have not only the housing stock that we need, but the programs that will help people buy their houses or rent their houses. So whether it's a rent geared to income kind of program, or if it's advocating for with the banks to make sure that there are opportunities for people to afford the homes. Those are all the kinds of programs I think that we can be working on. We work very closely with the region, and that needs to continue in terms of housing that is affordable within Waterloo Region.
I think affordable housing is not only a local issue, but it's all over province of Ontario, especially in the southern western Ontario. So recently, I think there's some new policy that allows municipalities to contribute in those housing supply issue, where some local municipalities can afford or allocate some funds. I think this is part of a good issue to encourage some partnership between public and private sectors, or we come up with some like solution that we can contribute to increase the supply, and that way we can help like either like low-income people or needy families to have a good living standard in our city at large.
So as I said, affordable housing is one of the key priorities of my campaign. I'm really proud in the work that we've done in the last 4 years of my first term on council. We created a stable funding source at the City of Waterloo for our affordable housing reserve, and I had personally advocated during budget time to increase the funding in that reserve. And that funding led to direct investment in a number of affordable housing initiatives across the City of Waterloo, which are making a difference for those residents. Moreover, I'm happy we in this last term of council created the first ever City of Waterloo affordable housing strategy. It's the first time we've ever had one of these strategies at our level, and it's a 10-year plan to create and retain housing. And in the next term of council, we need to implement that strategy, which includes things like inclusionary zoning, which requires new development to have a small percentage of affordable units within any new build. And we also need to broader zoning permissions in low density neighborhoods to allow for missing middle, gentle density, and attainable housing.
Another fantastic question. Housing is by far the #1 issue. And we have to really look at perhaps other options. You know, Waterloo is landlocked. It's not growing. It's not out there like Cambridge and Kitchener. We have to look at other options, like maybe a more dense development, and really using our land to the best capabilities that we can do right now.
So, I mean, I'm experiencing that now. I recently moved in with my partner, and we decided that we wanted to rent because affordability of housing is just really hard right now. And I see those issues of affordability, and it was really, really hard even just to find somewhere to rent. And we had to go over our budget. So I'm really excited to be able to be a voice for everybody, for people like that who are struggling with housing, and to understand, sitting on council, have somebody that really understands those needs.
Yeah, so the City of Waterloo, as a lower tier government, we don't have the direct responsibility for construction of affordable housing. But the role that we can play is associated with our planning department and facilitating planning applications in a timely manner. And we've also taken a really strong leadership role as a city to create an affordable housing strategy where we're actually putting resources away, and resources in the form of finances away, so that we can take the bold step of helping to pay things like development fees or other fees associated with development applications for affordable housing. Our economic development department can also work with potential interested parties to try to find land. That's one of the real challenges in Waterloo is around finding land.
For housing, I believe the municipal council should liaise with most of the developers, bring private stakeholders in the society, and then let them plan ahead, plan with these guys. If they are developing, let's say, like a 3 or 4 building, the council can come and say, okay, can you make it 5, and then subsidize it. So if they can come in agreement with developers, I believe they have so many housings. In Ward 4, you can hardly see skyscrapers. You can hardly see high buildings. So this is one of the issues that the masses are suffering. So liaising with the developers is the major priority that I would really intake when I run for council.
Housing affordability is probably the major issue across Canada. But KW is a high economic standing. We have a higher living wage than many areas. And so it is an issue. I think that I'd like to see, besides just higher density, which anybody in Waterloo knows is what downtown Waterloo is becoming, or I should say uptown Waterloo, I would like to see that the developers need to give some affordable housing and green space and not just be accepted to do higher density. So that takes a little bit of the onus off of just the developer, but the council and the developer working together to add more units. I believe there's a a great new project going down at the old Schneider's plant in Cortland. I think it has 2,000 and some units, but only about 100 are affordable. I think we could up that.
Housing for everyone who wants it is a human right. We all deserve safe, affordable housing that meets our needs. As a city, we've implemented the Affordable Housing Grant Program that we're contributing to every year. We've given supportive housing of Waterloo region with a $200,000 grant. And this fall, we're going to be seeing the affordable housing strategy come forward with creative solutions that I'm hoping to see things like mid-rise buildings and using city land and more. We need to address the immediate needs of the housing crisis right now, and we need to be thinking about what's going to be needed 20 years from now. So I'm ready to put bold actions into place for addressing the crisis we're facing now and move us into the future working together with you.
Yeah, this is a great question because it's important to make sure that we're talking about solutions that we can actually implement. One of the main things that the local city council is in control of is zoning and requirements for zoning. So we have the ability to make sure that we're building far more, low-rise, walk-ups, accessible structures, buildings for people to live in. Multi-bedroom units for families and places that can be built quickly. A lot of the time, what we're talking about when we're looking at housing, we're looking at high-rise structures that take years to build, or individual homes that are built one at a time. But particularly when we're looking at 4- and 5-story buildings, they can be built quickly using stick frame construction, far less expensively, I should say, than other forms of housing. And it's something that we can do with zoning and with the rules that City Council is able to put in place.
Municipalities can address local concerns about supply and affordability of housing by listening to the community, by asking what the community needs and how we can help. And I would forward that by bringing those conversations from Ward 6 to City Council. I would listen to the city staff who have the expertise and what their suggestions are and formulate a plan so that we know how to move forward together.
As a municipality, Waterloo needs to look at some of the strategies that they can use to improve the quality of housing and the affordability of housing in the city. In particular, one big thing is modernizing our zoning bylaw to allow for new styles of housing that let people live the way that they need to and appeal to the diversity of housing that we need to have in this city. We can enable the middle style of housing that builds comfortable, walkable communities that feel safe but are accessible to people at different stages of life, levels of income, and allow them to live where they need to and access work, school, and other resources. We also want to incentivize and support the creation of nonprofit housing that supports residents and keeps affordable housing stock affordable long-term, and build out a nice active transit and transportation network throughout the city that supports people transiting throughout to wherever they need to work, go to school, and live so that they can be comfortable and move around to all the options across the city.
Sure, supply and affordability, that's obviously an important topic. I know that rents have been increasing in the city and there is not much supply of lower income housing and rental income. Yeah, I'd like to see that improved. As a new councillor, I can't say that I'm fluent on all the policies that are currently in place, but I will work with the city to try and improve the housing quantities and quality for the residents in our area.
Affordable housing is a really complex challenge that requires a high degree of cooperation between the different levels of government. So I think as we're approaching affordable housing as a city, we obviously have to look at all of the tools in our toolkit. We have zoning, we have bylaws, there are incentive structures that we can introduce to help developers find those sweet spots between affordable and sustainable housing. We need to make sure that our housing also addresses our climate considerations going forward. And that means that we need to make sure that there's a way for people to afford housing along our key active transportation and public transportation corridors in the city and across the region.
It's very important to have all perspectives heard whenever we're dealing with issues around the table. I'm very pleased with the approach I've taken over the last 4 years to make sure that I have the input from the residents in Ward 1 as I'm discussing and debating issues at the council table. I look forward to continuing to do that. Public input is important, and we've had a number of issues over the last couple of years where things have been directed based on the input that we have received from the public. I hope to continue to be able to do that in the next 4 years.
So technically, as part of the democratic process, we elected to represent our people, our voters. So in my belief, everything has to go along with the interest of the local people and the city at large. So more consultations, more surveys, more community engagement should be encouraged and done, so that we reach to a conclusion where everybody is happy with the policy, because there's no meaning when everybody lives in different realms. So because we live all in the city, and if I was a councillor, I need to make sure that those decisions are made in favor of the citizens and also the city for medium and long term. So that means in case of some policies are not accommodated, then we have to provide some justification that people can accept.
Public feedback and staff recommendations are an extremely important piece of the puzzle when it comes to engagement, broadly speaking. For me, communication has been a hallmark of my career and of my first term on council. I think it's extremely important for us to get out in front of issues, and to that end, I've attended neighborhood association meetings and events. I go door knocking through my term on council to engage directly face-to-face with residents who may not necessarily get involved with online engagement or emailing their councillor directly. I do monthly newsletters on my website, as I said, and I've engaged in social media and traditional media. It's one of the main things that I'm really proud of the work that I've done over the first term of council. I do not take lightly going against staff recommendations, and I could count on one hand the number of times that we did that over the first term of council. But at the same time, I think it's that our residents ask and elect our councillors to do their research and to make a strong stand where necessary.
David, I am here to represent Ward 3 and the constituents of Ward 3. It's my belief that my personal decision should not trump the issues or the concerns of my constituents. So I will go with and I will promote my constituents' point of view.
I think collaboration is very important, and me personally, I've opened up my lines of communication. I have a Facebook page that you can message me, and I want to continue that if I'm elected. Really want to focus on having that communication between not only the people of Ward 3 to me, but also from me to back to them. So saying, why did we vote the way we did? Every case-by-case issue is going to be different. And in my experience, I have a master's degree, and it's about that. It's about, let's look at both sides of the issue and really focus on why should we vote a certain way, what's going to be best for everybody. Unfortunately, not every vote is going to be the best thing for everybody, but it's how do we compromise, how do we collaborate, and work together.
So I think that public feedback is really important. One of the issues that it has come up on is with regard to speed limits. Another one was with regard to backyard fires. I think that one of the challenges is that when you go out and seek feedback, if you don't use like actual survey instruments where they're normalized surveys where the surveys would be deemed to be reliable, it's very tricky. Like with some of the issues, people who are providing feedback don't even live in Waterloo. So the survey might say, X number of people responded to a survey, but 50% of those people live in Muskoka. And that doesn't come through on the surveys. So these are challenges for council to weigh. And I also have to take into consideration staff recommendations and the legal binds that sometimes we find ourselves in.
Well, I personally, I accept constructive feedback from wherever I go. Yeah, you realize that I think I'm the only person that has my phone number in the nomination form. If you open the election site, my phone number is there. As a matter of fact, people have been trying to contact me through my phone, text messages asking, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about that? And then I respond to them. So there's going to be a transparent government. There's going to be easy communication between me in council and then the general public. So it's going to be, send me your question. I'm open. My office is going to be open to anybody. If you have any question, my doors are open. It's something like I need this one-on-one interaction with people. If there's something that has been neglected and maybe somebody else is saying it, my office is open. You can shoot me a text message, send me an email. It's all there on online. Thank you.
I think as an elected representative of your ward, you need to listen to the voter. What they want is why you are there. You are a figurehead or one vote for their whole area. I would institute a bi-monthly town hall gathering so that the people could come and talk to me and say, this is our concerns, this is what we need done, this is what we'd like to see happen. I mentioned earlier the backyard fires where they did a survey and 80% of the population said we want it and the council voted it down. We have some of these same discussions with speed limits. And I think that is probably the first thing you need to do is listen to your constituents. I'd also like to send, if I get elected, a survey out right when I get elected to find out what people's needs and wants and issues and concerns are. And then I could deal with them.
Public feedback is extremely important to me. We work together as residents, council, and city staff to provide recommendations to build the greatest city that we can, so everyone can thrive. In the past 4 years, this council has approved most staff recommendations coming forward. And in recent past, we did approve moving towards 30 kilometers an hour and 40 kilometers an hour on smaller roads, local and residential roads, not bigger arterial roads like Bridgeport and University, for example. And the reason we did that is because we hear at the doors in the last election with phone calls during this council that traffic calming and slowing traffic is the #1 issue. Safety on our streets, sidewalks, and trails is the most important thing people have been contacting us about. So we have listened to experts, big cities, and international best practices to make our streets safer.
So I've worked with the staff of the City of Waterloo on a number of occasions, and Waterloo staff do an amazing job. I think that it's really important that elected officials are always taking staff recommendations seriously, always making sure that they're looking at them, and that needs to be the basis of decisions. But at the end of the day, the decision is going to be made by elected officials. That's what our communities elect people to do. The primary thing that needs to happen when there is a difference there is communication. I don't necessarily think that every city councillor has always done the best they could in communicating the reasons why they've reached some decisions that differed from staff recommendations. It's just a matter of talking to people, letting them know why decisions were made, letting them know what went into it so that they can have confidence in what was behind those decisions. And that's what I do.
It's really important for the citizens of Waterloo to feel that they have a voice at City Hall and that their concerns are heard. When decisions are made that constituents don't necessarily resonate with, it's important for there to be an open, transparent conversation so that they understand the rationale behind the decision and how the decision may impact the city at large.
A city like Waterloo is a really complex machine, and council often relies on the expert opinion of staff who can do research, consolidate best practices from elsewhere, and lean on their backgrounds to make recommendations on new policy initiatives. However, this isn't where the story should stop for new policy proposals coming before council. And it's really important that councillors lean on the experiences and the opinions and the thoughts of the residents in their ward and the entirety of the city when making new changes to the city. In particular, I think it's really important that we have research staff that look to collect feedback and background from residents all over, not just those that are engaged and not just those that are on the Engage platform where Waterloo currently solicits resident feedback, but also residents that are less engaged and might not be aware of these changes being made. It's really important that we involve everybody in the city in decisions and make sure that the city is run for the best interest of its residents.
Yeah, well, I've been on the board of a large condominium corporation where I currently reside, and had to deal with different personalities from the board and try to resolve some issues around the board. I'm also the president of that condo corporation this year. I know the difficulty of getting things passed through boards, and I assume it's going to be the same as council. I want to bring my experience and practical thought process to the city to help resolve some of the issues between staff and council.
Public engagement and trust in government are interlinked. So I think it's really important that this next council truly consider how we can help citizens contribute to the participatory process, that we can engage them and help to catalyze a generative approach to feedback. We have an incredible brain trust in Waterloo. We have multiple post-secondary institutions. We have a ton of young people with bright ideas who aren't constrained by how we've done things in the past. We need to bring these people together and help give them the conditions to work together to create creative solutions to the problems ahead. We also have an opportunity to invest in the organizations that are already leading this work.
The tax question is always an interesting question. We have to take into account not only what we need to do as a city to make sure that we are a vibrant, growing, expanding city, and what's happening in our surroundings, such as the COVID-19 pandemic. It's caused a lot of hardship for many, many families. It may mean, as we look forward to the budgets over the next three to 4 years, that we may have to pause some of the projects so that we are still moving our city forward, but yet doing it in a way that is affordable and respectful of the economic conditions that many of our residents find themselves in.
Property tax is always a big issue because it's a dollar value. So I think here is a very good subject where we can invest more in very creative and innovative ideas, how to make cost-effective projects and make it more efficient. And some new technologies can help in that, and that way we can increase even the living standards of our city and citizens here locally in City of Waterloo. And especially we have the two good universities that we can encourage some partnership between these two, University of Waterloo and Laurier University. So we can come up with some new solutions that does not necessarily increase the tax value that will be paid by the taxpayers. That way we can give them most value of their dollar.
So property tax increases is going to be a big challenge for future councils with what we're dealing with from an inflationary perspective. Inflationary increases are likely something that we're going to have to continue to pursue because that's how most of our services are delivered, whether it's construction projects that are impacted by those costs or whether it's labor agreements. Moreover, the city owns $2.7 billion in assets, and that's stuff that the residents of the city of Waterloo own. And we have an asset management plan that sort of dictates to us what we need to do to close the infrastructure deficit in order to ensure that future residents are not faced with the burden of future financial obligations or crumbling infrastructure. I'm really proud that this latest term of council, we did some of those investments to close that infrastructure gap, because I know that residents not only want to see value from their current assets, but they want more infrastructure, things like splash pads and dog parks that we need to continue to deliver to the residents of Waterloo.
If we are truly getting improved service delivery, I would promote increased property taxes.
So I think taxes are really important and they have their place. A lot of people are really struggling to afford everything, and we've seen homelessness increase, and that's a huge issue. So we really have to balance the needs of what we need from taxes and how much people can pay. And so I think it is really important that we're going to need to do a lot of research about it. And I really want to listen to both sides and understand more what is going to be the best choice. And I think in council that, again, that collaboration is going to be really important to figure that out.
I guess if people wanted a change in service delivery substantially higher than what it is right now, and they said they wanted to pay more for taxes, I would certainly listen to that. I'm not really comfortable raising taxes for any reason. So I try to stay focused on making sure that our house isn't leaking, shall we say. So if I'm increasing taxes, I want to make sure that I'm doing that to make sure our infrastructure is being reinvested in, that if we have climate change resiliency and mitigation measures that need to be put in place, that we prioritize that we give consideration to service delivery that serves all citizens as opposed to maybe just a few. So things like library services serve everyone at wherever they are. And senior services, for example, is an important delivery that we do. And I want to make sure those are well invested in.
I know in recent years or recent time, there had been a lot of inflation. There's been lots, the cost of living has actually gone high. For now, I think increase in property tax should be laid, it should be in the same way it is now. It shouldn't be increased. I know how much I pay for my own property tax, and it's a lot for now. You go to the grocery store, the price of something, you go $100, you come in out with 2 bags. So increasing the property tax is not going to be fair for most of the families, especially for people who are just starting their life. So I wouldn't raise any taxes now. In the future, we might put it on the table, but for now, it has to be the same.
Property taxes are always an issue in any election, or taxes, period, I should say. I think when we're looking at municipal, I think that some people don't realize that there are two specific areas. You have the physical infrastructure, but you also have social infrastructure. So yes, the roads and the bridges, and that needs done, but that's quite often provincial or federal. But you also need programs for seniors, for youths, for the most vulnerable, for handicapped, LGBTQ. You need to cover those areas also, and that is in the societal infrastructure. And sometimes you need to raise taxes to look after those things, because your society is only as strong as your most vulnerable. So the idea would be to bring everybody up to an equal place.
As residents of Waterloo, we deserve a strong public infrastructure. Recently, we've seen the parkland strategy come forward. Lots of parks in Ward 5 have been improved and built, like Rosalie, Moses Springer, Bechtel, and Exmoor Park. Then there's a new library branch on the east side of the city, which serves so much of Ward 5. At the same time, those investments require property taxes, and the times are tough. Groceries are expensive, gas. We're all thinking about our individual finances. And so as a councillor, it's really important to me to work to prioritize projects with residents, talk to you about it, look for federal and provincial grants so that we don't have to use all our property taxes on public infrastructure, as well as have a public infrastructure that allows us to get out, recreate, do arts and culture, and connect with others, and have a city that we're really proud to live in.
So we need to make sure that we have the services that are supporting our community. Our community isn't a community without the services that we need. Exactly what needs to happen in terms of generating revenue or moving resources from where it's being spent now, perhaps to somewhere else, is something that needs to be looked at actively. It can be a case-by-case decision. It's not something that has just one answer, but we need to make sure that we have a community that feels like a community, functions like a community, and works for everyone in it. And that's what I want to do.
Raising property taxes to increase services is a topic I would need to do more research on. I would listen to city staff and determine where property taxes are allocated and how raising them would impact different segments of the society. Once I have a better understanding of the impacts of raising the property taxes and the services that would be improved or increased from them, I could make a more concrete decision.
The question of raising taxes to support new policy initiatives is a very nuanced one. I do believe in building robust public services, and I know that those cost money. In order to deliver proper services from the city and provide value to residents across Waterloo, we do need to spend money and make those investments now for the savings down the road. It's important, though, that councillors and the city take into account the thoughts of residents through platforms like Engage Waterloo, the general thoughts heard from newspapers and letters to the editor, and everything else coming from the community to inform the decisions that we make. Spending money and making investments in public services and public infrastructure is important, but we need to make sure it's always with the best interests and the thoughts of the community behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would improve increases in property tax for service delivery. One of the big issues that I am supportive of is infrastructure improvements within the uptown core and elsewhere in the city. I know as a professional engineer that I've dealt with infrastructure improvements for years, and you have to pay for that somehow through property tax. That's the main mechanism that the city has the funds to pay for these types of service improvements, and I would absolutely support keeping up with the demands of these improvements.
The issue of property taxes is an evergreen one in municipal politics. It's extremely challenging, and I think it's important to note that we are an outlier in Canada among all of the OECD countries. We require about 95% of our revenue to come from property taxes at the city level, at the municipal level. This is not sustainable. What we have to do is come up with creative approaches to finding new forms of revenue streams, and also to work with our provincial and federal partners to cost share on our big ticket items.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.